Hello, hello. I'm sure at least one person wonders why I say hello every single beginning of the start of the stream. Usually nobody's here, but I know a few people do watch the VODs, so I appreciate you watch. I appreciate it. I really do. And I suppose that's the YouTube as well. Though that's just the VODs, just on YouTube. But at least that's a bit better quality. Just a bit. Let's see how long the queue is gonna be at this time. I recently did a stream about this time, not too long ago, but that queue was surprisingly fast. But maybe I was just lucky that time. I haven't even seen this one. That's kind of funny. Man, where is Olympian on her? Can we get a classic on her skin? I feel like that would fix so many of the problems people have with them. And they need to do the same with some other gods, I think. Like, if a mana doesn't have a little mana skin when he comes out, it's gonna feel wrong. I think as well just to pay tribute to where they came from. Like Hades as well. Like, some people may not even know this at this point, but this used to be a skin for him, but they made it his base skin instead. Because I guess they just thought it fit him better. Maybe it was just more lore accurate, I don't know. But old Hades was a bit different, but it was still pretty cool. It was just more skeleton, I guess. This does look cool though, so I'm not complaining, but... Oh yeah, Bakasura is a big one when he comes. He needs an OG skin. I don't like the new one. Mostly, I think he looks cool, but the animations and stuff in Bakasura I wasn't a huge fan of on the remake. I don't think there's any other gods, at least so far on this list, that got like a big remodel. Actually, Bacchus is a pretty big one. I do miss the older Bacchus, but he was a lot more goofy. Like Hyris used to make the gods a lot more cartoony and goofy looking before they remade everyone to look a lot more realistic. I do miss a lot of those characters, especially Guan Yu, because Guan Yu was the god that got me into Smite. So when they changed him, I was a bit sad. But like, he still looks cool. He wasn't the one that I originally fell in love with. He had the funniest sound effects back then. His 3 just made bongos drum sounds. What are we banning? Getting still will dodge. Why would he dodge? Is there a reason? I don't really know what's ban. I haven't been first pick in such a long time. Oh, because he's support? I see. Yeah, I mean, that's up to him. That's fair. Like, I kind of understand some people not wanting to play that role. Or play, like, off role. Support does feel pretty rough in ranked, I'm not gonna lie. Well, actually, maybe I changed that. Because I do think support right now has a higher chance of carrying than usual. Just because you can actually go for something like Achilles or like I guess Cupid or something like that, where you can actually build a bit hybrid, build some damage. You can maybe carry it yourself, because you basically get to play like a second jungler. Yeah, you just go for the Adventurous Blade and stuff, and just smack everyone. Can fucking solo. Like, it's one of the big reasons why I banned Fenrir is because he can also play in support, and he can be just as annoying. I can see this game is going to be a nightmare for me, though. Maybe I should have banned the Wheelix. Dude, but this feels like such an anti-Aladdin comp. Like, who do I go on safely? I feel like I die if I go on any one of them. I need to be able to straight up one-shot them. I need full late game. I do think we have a great comp, though. If we get fed, like, our comp is gonna be very scary. But so is theirs. Oh shit, the skin.
We will make quick work of this.
I want to try the skin. I haven't used it before. I haven't even seen it. Your Wheelix box is fixed now, right? Which one? The one where you get stuck in walls? Or what? Because that one is fixed. At least it was in the patch notes. But I think there's been a few. There was one where she herself could get stuck in the wall with her too. I think that's fixed. And the one where you could pull someone who was jumping over a wall and then they would get stuck in the wall, I believe that is also fixed. From what I read in the patch notes. But you never know, that might be specific cases where it still happens.
It's good to keep a trick or two at one side.
I remember his Mac screaming confusion because him get pre-beating to jump and then not get a Wheelix ult, but he got Wheelix ult still. I see. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't had that issue at least. Maybe his beats run out? I don't know. I have no idea why that would happen. I've pre-beatsed a Wheelie's ult before, at least, where I didn't get pulled. Send the clip, I see. Yeah, I'm not sure then. I'm gonna be rusty in Aladdin, I feel like. I haven't been able to get him for a while. The one game I did get him, my team kind of lost too much and we ended up surrendering at 10. I was just 0-0-0. And it was a bad server for me that game, I believe, so I wasn't able to do much in my lane anyway. As to which, I don't know if this is a bad server. I'll figure out when I use my one. It better be good, man. I'm so tired of getting Aladdin and getting bad servers. It's happened the last 3 times. I'm starting to think it's an Aladdin problem.
Thanks.
Shit.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Almost.
Your middle tower is under attack.
I felt a little bit of stuttering when I dashed, so I really hope it's not any worse than that. Because it wasn't that bad.
Back to me. Shade.
Glory.
No, I missed. It is aspect chalk, so I don't mind taking the trades. Yeah, there is a bit of fucking Ebian. Why do I always have bad service in Aladdin?
Your middle tower is under attack.
Because this stuttering on the dash is just in general on jumps and dashes when I have bad servers. So I can play gods with without dashes and jumps pretty easily on bad servers even, but it just feels terrible because I stutter every time I use them. So if I have 2 of them on Aladdin, this just doesn't feel good. And it's really hard to auto cancel. We're just gonna picks, yeah. I mean, I do think in a lot of cases, I think the alpha name is being used a bit too much, or beta even. Just early access, I guess. But I feel like Hi-Rez has been doing pretty well with it. I'm not gonna lie. And I don't, like, they probably have been somewhat desperate to get Smite 2 out, with some potential money issues that was in the company that we might not have known about. So in my case at least, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But I also don't blame people for being frustrated.
Enemy spotted.
Enemies in the right jungle. Enemies incoming right.
I'm glad he didn't come, because I don't think I could fight him. Maybe if I hit my ult I could, but... me, I'm sure you guys see it too, right? The slight stuttering when I land on the jump. That's the worst part.
Ally has been
Because it
slain.
stops me from being able to auto-cancel.
An enemy has been slain. Your left tower is under attack.
Shade. Enemy missing left. Back to me. Shade.
Your middle tower is under attack. Faith and glory. An enemy has been slain.
Return.
No, you still got that. Yeah.
Back to me. Shade.
Damn it. I keep forgetting that it will continue into the tower when it gets close enough. I just stop it from doing that shit. How does he heal so much? Oh.
Return.
An enemy has been slain.
Enemies incoming. Enemy spotted.
Killing spree. Double kill.
Ah, that push. Tragic.
Back to me. Shade. Back to me. Shade.
Shimmering radiance.
Oh my god, the dash feels terrible. on the high ping, it's insane. It's honestly one of the worst feeling dashes. Normal jumps are actually just better. I guess it just interacts with so much. With the wall running and shit that it just fucks up my latency.
An ally.
It's almost
has
kind of
been
funny how
slain.
bad it looks on high ping. Damn it. They actually have 1 HP, that sucks, man.
Return.
Wait, what am I building anyway? Maybe spear? I think I'll do spear first.
Enemy missing left.
Your right tower is under attack.
I don't really think this is a great fight. Nope. I didn't mean to dash either.
Help left lane.
Well played by Herc. I honestly think if I followed, I could finish off the gap. Didn't realize he was gonna outplay them. fucking waited. Oh, that's so loud. Damn, Aladdin. Oh, you can't wish when you're dead. Well,
Your middle tower is under attack.
I wanted to
Your
wish my
tower
money. I
is
just
under attack.
buy spear, but at this point, I might just get the gold naturally. Hello, Paulo. Is Aladdin 3 always have a knock up or just bugged because play with the game without one single? It's not a bug. You have to just repress the ability. All his abilities have repress uses, and the repress on the dash is I can just show you. So this is just a normal one. If I press it again mid-air,
Your left tower
or before I jump actually, I believe you have to do it during the dash part of it, like wall running. You press it again, it will be a knock up when you land. Same thing with it, like his dash and like, you know, this. If I press it again, it will do the ground slams.
Your left tower is under
So all his abilities have double uses, and that's tied to the passive you see. In my case, it's bottom left, the two eyes, the genie's eyes.
killing spree.
And hello, Pectus. Good to see you, man. I'm doing good.
On my way.
Your right tower is under attack.
Yeah,
Is not.
I guess I shouldn't have. Oh, dude.
Excuse me, my mistake.
His death sound is so loud. Why is the voice line for his death is so loud? I don't understand. Alright, I need to just sit back and farm a bit. I'm dying now because I'm trying to help out. I need to chill a bit. I don't want Chuck to run away with the lead because this is going to be insufferable to deal with.
You're gonna wish you stayed on. The enemy team has destroyed the pyromancer.
And even more important than the Chuck, honestly, I don't want to fall too far behind the Wheelix. Currently, I'm still ahead because of the solo. So. I should have looked out for him. Didn't realize he was rotating in there.
Your left tower is under attack. Middle. Slain an enemy.
A fellow shinobi, I see.
Oh, that's huge from Herc.
Got a mana. Attack.
I could have beast, but it would still do the damage, right? So there was no reason for me to beats it. I would have just beats and still died, because it takes the damage when you beats. I believe I learned that yesterday, when I tried to beats and still died. Should have just ulted early, I guess.
An enemy has been
Big. That's kind of brutal, I think, too, because Wheelix can really just hold her ult until they get low now and still just finish her off with the damage from it. I'm dying too much this game. Hyris, please, add a ping counter. I want to see it. I need to see what my ping is. It's gonna make it so much easier to play around it when I know how much ping I have. he take mine? He did not. What a nice guy.
Enemies have returned to base. Been slain.
This does not look like a thing I should be rotating for, to be honest.
Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain.
Oh, I shouldn't skill get. Ah, man. I feel we're getting out-rotated, though. That is so annoying. I really wanted to help him so badly. I should have just killed whoever was tanking the tower. I thought I could kill the Anubis. But he's got Chronos Pendant. It's good to hear, Pectus. I'm happy to hear it.
Your left tower is under attack.
I do understand the mindset. Like, on a bad day, if I'm in a bad mood, I don't queue ranked. But that's just because I know that even though, like, it doesn't necessarily bother me if I meet someone who's kind of annoying or something like that, it's still just not something I feel like dealing with on a bad day. The kind of same thing goes for streaming. Like, I don't stream if I'm in a bad mood. I never do. That doesn't help. Like, I don't want people to see that side of me either. I'm kind of a bitch when I'm angry. I get really whiny and annoying.
Your middle tower is under attack. Killing spree.
A fellow shinobi, I see.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Yeah, Matthew, that is a thing that can happen now. I'm not 100% sure, but her 2 is now cripple immune, yeah. I believe that is something they did. I mean, I think that's fine, honestly. Like, she can't... I still think, like, gods being so heavily affected by cripple is kind of a weird part of the game for some gods. Maybe this is just a hot opinion, but like, I don't really like Abilix that much. It's just, I feel like it's fair that she can use her too. Susanoo can't dash, like Aladdin can't use his 2 dashes as well. Like, a lot of stuff really gets screwed over by cripple. I think it's fair that Abilix can use her main damaging ability while crippled, to be honest. She's probably the one case I feel like it's fair. Because that was some horse shit. Just cripple her main ability, she literally can't play the game. What is your team? It is Sav, it is Adapting, it is Nico, and it is Lucky Dan. Let's just go Rod now, I guess. Oh my god. We're getting absolutely hammered. Dude, I can't play the game. Oh my god, I'm not trying to do the things that I'm trying to do right now. What the fuck just happened in this whole exchange? Did not want to dash a tower. My dash didn't reach. I guess my own thing actually went where I wanted was my one.
Your left tower is under attack. Your left tower.
I feel like why didn't you chill a bit or more around mid?
Your right tower is under attack.
Do we have divine? We do have divine.
Enemy missing left.
Man. Oh. Big. Actually super big.
An ally has been slain.
Behind us.
Rip both our buffs.
An enemy has been slain.
Attack the Gold Fury!
Enemy missing left.
Hello, Caps. Hello, Phytoon.
Shut down.
We probably need some wards at this point. I feel like we're getting partly out-rotated because we don't know where anyone ever is.
An enemy has been slain.
Enemy missing left. Enemy missing left.
The amount of times this game I have been baited by a hurt pool or missed stuff because of the hurt dash is wild.
Shade.
But hey, at least a Wheelix isn't camping me. Positives. I'm just bad on my own. I'm starting to lose track of what I should be building here. Do you still build pen on mages? Like, does it even matter?
Your right tower is under attack.
I heard pen's kinda ass at the moment.
On my way!
But like, Obsidian Shard feels weird in the ladder and you definitely do not want to go Totem.
Enemy missing left.
An enemy has been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
I'm suffering so bad from helping syndrome right now. I want to be there so badly for my team. But we're just not really grouped enough to do anything about it. And if I go there as Aladdin alone, I just feel like
Ally has been slain.
I just get
Enemies at
swarmed
the
and
Gold Fury to the fullest.
I'm just dead.
On my way.
Enemies at the Gold Fury!
An ally has been slain. The enemy team has
How did I
destroyed
not get
the
that?
Gold Fury.
Back to me. Shade.
We need to start grouping more though. I just see us getting caught and then people go in one by one. We just die. It feels really awkward this game. Don't see them on fire.
The enemy team has destroyed the pyramid. Your middle tower is under attack.
Damn it. Okay, man.
It's not.
What?
Over.
500 feather step with a... Oh my god. Also, how the hell was she so fast? Oh, Aaron died, right? Alright. Well, this game feels borderline unplayable as Aladdin, to be honest. Especially when my 3 is lagging too. Yeah, what a matchup. I hate it, man. I can't play the game. I'm playing this game like shit, though. I'm absolutely playing this game bad. Some great damage, though. Go, Matthew. Hit the autos. No! No, there's no way Gibbs out. That's crazy.
An ally has been slain.
On my way.
An ally has been slain.
I got my revive if I somehow end up dying again like an idiot.
Your right tower is under attack.
I was hoping Zeus could maybe finish him off. Ah, he's dead. Oh well.
The enemy team has destroyed the fire giant.
I do keep forgetting about a Wheelix when I pick Aladdin. I'm not used to that matchup yet. Just back. I feel like a Wheelix is already rotating.
The pyromancer has arrived. Your middle tower is under attack.
Also, is it just me or does Aladdin just overall feels worse like this patch? That's probably just because you get less gold, so it's harder to actually get your build going. But he feels so much slower to play. I just don't feel like I'm anywhere near the one-shot potential yet. Granted, we are like 15k gold behind, but still. Yeah, I mean, that's not a whole lot of damage.
It's not. Over.
Oh, what? So loud! What is all these sound effects? Yeah, didn't get my ult off.
Double kill. Killing spree.
Yeah, I feel useless this game. I'm playing this so badly.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has been destroyed.
Heartseeker did what? No, dude, that can't be right. 424?
An ally has been slain.
Ain't no way it did that much damage to me.
Your middle phoenix has been destroyed.
Yeah, not ending. We have one final chance. I'm just trying to think how I should be playing these team fights. At least I'm almost full build. Just gotta finish my starter now. Then maybe I can start poking a lot with my one.
team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
You also don't get double gold for fire waves anymore, do you? Damn, they just really took all the gold away. Survive! We need all 5 people. Oh no, this is not looking good.
Has been slain.
And my dash.
Your Titan is under attack.
Okay.
The shadows take me.
That sucks, man. I definitely was useless this game, but I feel like it was amplified by the fact that we never grouped as 5. We did that once, and we almost did really well in that team fight. But we were also like 15k gold behind at that time. I did not have fun. I will give any server where I'm lacking a thumbs down, even if I win. I'm surprised I even did that much, honestly. I played like shit this game. I might have to shelf the Aladdin. It's not working for me lately. I will say though, Geb played really well in that game. Yeah, no worry, Matthew. Like I played like shit that game. I can't complain about anyone's performance when my own is that bad. We just didn't group this game. I feel like that's that's just feel like that's why we lost. We should have grouped way earlier. Geb kept out rotating us as well. He played really well. He was just always where he needed to be. It was pretty hard to deal with. He always somehow interrupted my dash. Yeah, actually, when you said it in the game as well, I had a small little rant about it. I don't think it's that bad of an idea. Like, Awilix is good at the moment, sure, but she's also one of the few gods that really needs, like, the fact that you can cripple her main ability feels stupid to me. If you want to, like, so on Susano it makes sense, I think, because it's just the dash, it's not the 1 and the 2, like the first 2 parts of the 1. Obviously the 3 as well, you can't do that. I feel like on Awilix it's extra bad. It's like saying on Chalk you cannot use your axe or your 2, right? I feel like that's a bit much. I feel like that's fine. What is not fine? Well, it's because you're Cupid, right? She can definitely outplay you in that sense, you know. But my point being is that I feel like she shouldn't be immune during it. I think that's the issue. Yeah, I mean, Cripple doesn't counter a Wheelix anymore, so that's just about it. What else do you pick? I mean, I don't think Cupid is like necessarily. Oh, give me a second. I have an alarm going off. Cupid was for sure always good. Also, where the fuck did my rank just reset? What happened? I think the better ADCs into a Wheelix are the ones that have better self peel. If that makes sense, like on her Artemis type stuff. You just want to get her the fuck away from you. I understand your confusion though, because it is obviously different from Smite 1, but I don't think it's a bad change personally. I think it makes sense. Honor? I mean, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, he does have a jump, but I mean more like in a self peel situation. I would rather have Honor than Cupid, I think. But maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I just like Honor. I don't know. Let's see. Who do we think in terms of into a Wheelix? I don't know. I mean, a Wheelix is really good at the moment as well. Medusa, maybe? Like Artemis for sure. Keranos? Maybe not Keranos either. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't really play much ADCs, so I'm not too sure. Dude is fine early on with aspect, I think, yeah. Oh, she's also knockback, you mean when she ults? Okay. You're making some pretty hard arguments here. Yeah, kind of convincing me that she's kind of bullshit to deal with as an ADC. Fair enough. Just pick Zeus, man. Pick Zeus, go Brawler, that's it. She can't deal with it. Fixed. Yeah, I believe it is intended too. That you can use her too. During cripple, because I in casuals, that's the only way I've been playing a Wheelix, because I'm not gonna put her solo. I can't fucking do that. But I do think it is an interesting change for sure. Did I miss the queue? Because it glitched before. I kind of want to play a tank. Maybe Odin? The god that I myself said is the worst god in the game at the moment. Could pull out the big hot Yamoja as well. Everyone knows I'm famous for that one. Yeah, I definitely get your point, Matthew. Like, if they removed so that you can now get crippled in a Willix 2 again, I wouldn't say it was insane, because I feel like she worked fine in Smite 1 like that, so I would get it. But you are probably right. I mean, if we're banning the Wheelix, I feel like I should be banning the Aladdin. Actually, no, I'm banning Fenrir for the same reason. Fuck that. I'd rather deal with Aladdin than Fenrir. I could just ban both too. I don't know what else to ban, to be honest. Because there's just too much stuff to ban. I want to ban Morrigan. I want to ban Sol. I want to ban Afro. I want to ban Herc. There's also Bari, actually. Shit. Probably should look at her. Hmm. Yeah. I think we're just removing Bari. Do think she's a bit too strong. Afro, I definitely like being removed as well. All your homies hate Subic players. Aren't you a Subic player, Nate? Am I wrong?
Select your god.
Oh, it hurts my soul, and I'm just not gonna pick Aladdin now that a Wheelix is out of the question, but I think that is the life I'm gonna live. And instead I'm picking Aphrodite, because I refuse to deal with it. What a life. Sorry I didn't hear. I just said, aren't you also a Sobek player? Or am I wrong? He doesn't have the capacity to hit the blocks. I believe in Nate, alright? At least 50% of the time, I'm sure he's gonna hit a block, right? Fifty is pushing it? Oh man. If this is Nate on that Sopek, he better show up. Wait, what am I against? Cupid or Uller? I guess Uller? I mean, I hope it's Cupid, because Uller just... I feel like it's gonna be somewhat boring to deal with. And scary. It's gonna be a mix of scary and boring. I need to live a life of dodging throwing axes. And I can never kill him, because he's just faster than me. Aren't these both ADC players? What am I against? Yeah, it's definitely beats. Excuse me. It's definitely beats game.
Oh my god, love it.
Uller is a jungler. Oh, I see. Then I'm against Anubis. No, that kind of makes more sense. Wait, no. Bot's mid? That's no way to... No, it doesn't make sense. That can't be right.
Curses.
Unfortunate, really? Good game.
I usually conduit gem on Afro when I actually play her. I'm not too sure how this will affect my early wave clear.
Minions have spawned.
Still, I mean, it's Anubis. It's not like I'm gonna win the wave clear anyway.
Enemy missing middle.
Enemy missing left.
Never mind, I guess. They're starting on blue. This could be bad for me. It is indeed bad for me.
Do the small two once, bro.
anything about that. I need to just try and get blue.
Enemy missing middle.
I do not know which start is more beneficial for the jungler. All I know is that it sucks for me when their jungler does that start, with a blue start, and mine doesn't. Because of this. They're just on blue here. I can't do anything about it.
For the next blue, I'm coming.
An enemy has been slain.
Ah, you see the solo kill? Crazy, man.
Enemy missing. Enemy missing right.
Yes. Use your abilities on me.
An enemy has been
Let's
slain.
just get the counters on this.
I carry you, Game Hunter, brother. No problem.
Thanks, man. I need it. Here's on the backs. I don't have my stun yet.
You have slain an enemy.
You rock.
Cooler than an iceberg. You're hotter than a fireside mug of cocoa.
Okay.
It's so specific. That's a great voice pack.
Attack right leg.
On my killing spree. Ultimate is ready. Your right tower is under attack.
Attack.
An enemy has been slain. Be careful.
Just back. After these. Don't want to lose them again.
Be careful. Enemy missing.
Just back before blue spawns. I'm just starting
So
Divine.
hot right now.
Screw this Anubis. No fun allowed. I don't even think Yim is that broken. I think a good Yimoja is very hard to deal with, but I wouldn't call her broken. He ulted my blue buff. Butts ulted my blue buff. I fucking heard that.
An ally has been slain.
I think I can kill Anubis.
Yeah, sure, I have my own.
Catch you later.
Just wait for the one first mini wave.
Yep.
Slain an enemy.
Can't believe Butts ulted my blue buff in the back. What the fuck?
Farewell. Be careful. An enemy has been slain. Complete.
Like, it doesn't even really matter. I don't think I need blue buff anymore, but still. It feels almost disrespectful.
Your team has destroyed a middle enemy tower. Your right tower is under attack.
Bad beats. No. No help. Ah, that sucks. Let's get Life Binder anyway. It's what I wanted to start with, but I wanted to not let the noobs play the game. Probably would have survived if I had Life Binder in these scenarios.
Enemy missing left.
Let me guess. Sobek is soloing my blue buff. Okay, maybe not. Oh yeah, he went straight Bancroft. I'm glad I started the mine actually, because of that. Oh, it's not even up yet.
Gank right lane.
They're going for my blue
Your
100%.
right tower
I can
is
already
under
fucking
attack.
smell it.
An enemy has been slain.
My ult wasn't up yet.
Enemy missing.
They're doing up blue and purple.
Your
Or
right
red.
tower is under attack.
Be careful.
Oh. Damn, he's just trolling? He is. I didn't even realize. That makes sense why he ulted my blue then. Damn, why is he trolling? That kinda sucks. That ruins the fun of this game.
Killing spree.
But I guess that makes sense why everyone is so fed in mid.
Completed. Your left tower is under attack.
Nah, man, this Kubus makes me so angry. I'm coming, bro.
Nice man, my ult's back up. He's taking the
I'm
long
diving
way.
from the... Yeah, I'm coming.
Now I'm angry.
Crumbling at the sight of my beauty.
Your middle tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain.
I'm not sure, but I think someone trolled the bot.
Yeah, he seems to be suiciding a bit.
Ultimate is down.
Man.
An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Enemy missing.
I mean, I hope they just surrender then, because, I mean... Just ends up being kind of a waste of time then. There's one player who just deliberately
Rampage.
feeds.
Why you see doing bots? Oh, I'm hopeless.
He's here.
I'm coming.
Your left tower is under attack.
He walked in.
You have slain an enemy. An enemy has been slain.
I have my ult.
An enemy has been slain.
I mean, someone else on that team is not really
Your right tower is under attack.
surrendering either. Don't worry. I'll end your misery.
An enemy has been slain.
It doesn't bother me.
Tower is under attack. Killing sprees.
I'd rather just get out of this game.
Your team has destroyed a right enemy tower.
Also, for the Afro lovers out there, can anyone answer me? Once you're leveled, you're 3 and you're 2. Which do you prefer to level? One of 4. Practicing? Kind of, but not really. Because I know why I'm playing Afro in the tournament, I can tell that much. I'll pull out the fucking Zeus before I pull out the Aphrodite. Scott's nasty. I would also expect her to be banned for the majority of ults.
Trembling at the sight of my beauty.
Little form. I do think form makes more
Bro,
sense.
I
just
don't
for
know
the
why
combo.
they're just not surrendering, man. This
Yeah, it's really awkward.
Ally has been
I don't know what to do.
Unfortunate, really.
I'm on my way, right? Hold on.
Your right tower is under attack.
No, you're yanking buffs, man. No. You don't do that.
I picked the gold, guys. Okay.
An enemy has been slain. Your left tower is under attack. Double kill. Attack the gold fury. Your right tower is under attack.
Yeah, I mean, let's just try to end this game before they win for some reason.
Just 2 gold, and then after that I can buy Poly for Fire Giant.
Your team has destroyed the gold fury.
I should have gone it back as well.
Be right back.
Attack fire giant!
I do think 4 is the better to level up. I agree, Nate.
Your left tower is under attack. An ally has been
Well, didn't realize he was getting low.
Your team has destroyed the fire giant.
I actually didn't even watch his health bar at all. I had no idea he was dying.
An enemy has been slain. Illuminating.
Way back enough. Could have just ulted him. I was linked to him too. I'll take that death upon me. That's my bad, Raz.
Your right tower is under attack. Shut down.
Thor, help my afro, bro.
Help!
You don't have any jump.
Oh, the Cupid was behind hers too. Oh, is he still dead?
Land and use your dagger, bro.
Need more cooldown. Let's get some wards as well. Goddamn, so big anti-healing. I would have been fine.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Damn. Yeah, I'm not gonna be allowed to heal. If Anubis healed or headlands me as well, with so big on me.
They are coming to me. I need help.
I'm away.
An enemy has been slain.
Rock.
An enemy has been slain.
Unbelievable.
On my way.
Trying so hard to land it, man. That shit does that sometimes not hit the target you're aiming for.
I have poly for the Phoenix.
An enemy has been slain. Your team destroyed a left middle Phoenix. Your team has destroyed a middle enemy Phoenix.
Tried. Damn. Alright, I started trolling. Went too deep. I'm also only level 17. Like, I'm not actually that farmed. Because we started just running around. I need to get some farm.
An enemy has left the game. Farewell. Your right tower is under attack.
The bots is higher level than me. What have I done this game?
Enemies in the right jungle. An ally has been slain. Your left tower is under attack. Your left tower has been destroyed.
We're just...
You have slain an enemy. Double kill. Your left tower is under attack. Attack the fire giant! fire giant.
What?
Unfortunate, really?
That's too bad. Okay.
Unfortunate, really?
I'll hit it eventually.
Unstoppable.
Long enough.
You can't kill him, I believe it.
Double kill.
Oh, alright, boys. Alright.
Double kill.
Alright. Bit much, maybe.
Victory.
I'll report the bots on the way out. Like, whatever happens, don't start trolling, man. I obviously do not know what happened, but I never think that's the way to solve the problem. If you're so unsatisfied, you could just leave the game. Like, like intentionally feeding, running the towers and stuff, just... It's so silly. I did say I wanted to play a tank, and then I logged in Aphrodite. Which could be a tank, but... Don't think she's as good as a tank. Actually, I take that back. She's just broken no matter what. What I really want to play though is like Sopic or something. Cabrakan maybe. I really need more of the solo guardians to come into the game, man. Maybe could do Ymir. No, Ymir isn't fun as a tank. Unless you support, I guess. Solo Ymir was fun for a little while when his passive was broken, but now it's just kind of ass. Maybe it's just me, but I also feel like we don't have that many tanks in the game. Like, it's been a little while. Obviously, we got Achilles recently, but he literally does not feel like a tank. He's not even on this list. According to the game, he is not a tank. Though I do agree, though. You don't really build him as a full tank. I mean, the best of the full tanks is probably just Cabrakan coming out of solo. Though if you have a team and you can just rely on the pulls and blocks with Hercules, he's probably still just better, but he's just so much better in the jungle. Maybe I do Cupid. Why do I feel like playing Cupid? What is the Cupid aspect even? I don't even know if I would do that in solo. I kind of want the heart bump damage. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I would do that as a solo. The Cupid aspect is I can't lose lane. That's what it is. Yeah, I can see that. Spend the Ephraim. I don't want to play it, and yeah. It's way better than no aspect. Okay. That's good to know. I'll probably build him like I would build Zeus. Like, at least in solo. With, like, you know, probably Berserkers and maybe Shifters or something like that. Because I still want to be hybrid. Like, no matter what I play in solo, unless it's shit like Hades, I guess, I don't generally want to go full damage. Open Finn.
Select your god.
I'll do a Thor game, actually. I haven't gotten to feel the aspect nerfs since they nerfed it. Let me give it a shot. Subrace is coming so soon. I'm really looking forward to it. Finally, a fun Guardian in solo. I just hope tanks are actually decent by the time he comes, though. No! Oh man. Who dodged? I started being quiet. I'm just looking at some Discord stuff. Ain't no way someone dodged and I missed the queue. What happened? Get me in. I do see that there is a queue that I have missed. But a lot of people from my last game wasn't really in this one anyway. So... damn. We'll see what happens then. Oh man, I definitely missed the queue. Alright, finally. Huh. I don't even know what to play in mid now.
Select your god.
I'm still thinking because I wanted to play Ra so bad now that I was mid. And I was like, alright. If I'm back to solo, I'll just play the Thor that I picked before. It is something I think I should be practicing a little bit. Because I've just been slacking on it. I just don't find it very fun. But I can't deny how good it is. Damn, our T-Fight's gonna be crazy. I've seen so much Khepri lately. People start to favor Khepri a lot again, it seems. I do think Khepri is pretty good. Like, the aspect definitely made him better, even though it was so weird when it came out. Everyone thought it was garbage. Turns out it actually is pretty decent. It's so simple, though. It's wild how simple it is. Mordred. I don't know this matchup very well. Because they're both really good early. But I'm not sure Thor is better than Mordred early. I'm gonna do Aegis. I'm gonna be a bit weird here. I don't even know what to actually build. Do you go Golden Blade? Like, is that the way to go? What is actually the Thor build right now?
Minions have spawned.
I might just start on blue in this game. I don't want to have the same situation as last one. Yeah, they're starting blue. I'll just do wave. Fuck it. Should have gone Sunder.
Your middle tower is under attack. Completed. Completed.
You get soul farm and I steal back. That's good.
I am actually on a bad server again. My hammer feels horrible. I can't fucking believe it. How much is this gonna happen today? Also, what the fuck is this Mordred Like, he's just fucking super zooming me. I don't know if blue was done. Let's check. It was not.
Your left tower is under attack.
Damn, today is not great in terms of servers for me. That's actually insane. I can't fucking believe I have another one. I think I'll do this instead. And just go full tank for the rest of it.
Thanks.
Your left tower is under attack.
Enemy missing middle.
I'm so lucky he didn't do my blue. That's super weird.
May they be cursed.
I'm so tired of junglers being in my lanes. Dude. Every game! Why am I getting ganked early? Where's my jungler then? I know we have Hades in this one, but still.
Your left tower
What is
under
this?
attack.
Oh, fuck me. That was just as bad as it could have gone. I got fucked up by the Minotaur, though. We both kind of did.
Enemy missing left.
On my way.
An
Enemies have
ally
returned
has
to
been
base.
slain.
Enemy ultimate down.
Your right tower is under attack.
At least I don't have an actual jump in this one, but the hammer will feel pretty bad.
Amazing.
Okay. Yeah, it's not gonna be fun. A fun Thor hammer
Enemy
game,
missing
man.
middle.
I'm so sad.
Enemy missing left. Defend left lane. Ultimate is ready. Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's just waiting in the bush. He wants me to hammer, then he ults me. I'm guessing that's the case. No. I'm an idiot. I don't know what's going on.
Ultimate is ready.
Thanks. Your left tower is under attack.
I'm just gonna sit back with my hammer being weird.
Your left tower is under attack.
Thanold. And Motor ult, but it doesn't matter.
Enemy has been slain.
Astounding.
That was very nice from Sobek.
anything left.
Ultimate is ready. Enemy ultimate down.
An enemy has been slain.
Attack.
An enemy has been slain.
I'm
May they be
chasing.
cursed. Gank.
Enemy missing right.
You have slain an enemy.
Enemy missing.
An ally
What a
has
blunder.
been slain.
Thank God. Probably only survived because Neath ended up getting in the way of them rotating. No, my blue buff XP. Man, Mordred's rotation really put him behind though.
An ally has
May
been
they be
slain.
cursed.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Enemy missing.
No.
Enemy
Waste spin.
missing. On my way.
Hello, Goblin Yeet. Good to see you.
Enemy missing middle. Be careful.
Hey, backed. Let me see if I can zone a bit.
Slain.
Or deny, I should say.
The Pyromancer.
Oh man, they die fast.
Enemy ultimate down attack.
Ultimate is down.
Your life stream. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been
Please
slain.
accept my
Your
apologies.
middle tower is under attack.
Oof. I'm having issues hitting my wall, especially I feel like on this ping as well, but that went over all good. Was pretty lucky as well. I think both me and Barrow played that kind of badly, but so did our enemies. Like that was just not a good exchange from both sides. Thana missed kind of everything twice. I missed everything twice. I think the Hades ult missed, at least on the Thana.
Retreat.
Don't know where Thana is.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Enemy ultimate down.
Damn it.
Enemy ultimate down.
At least we did end up getting the Capriot, but
Killing spree.
Your heart is pure.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack.
Beats Medusa.
Yes.
Enemy missing left.
Be right back. Enemy missing middle. Be careful, right. Behind us.
Enemy missing left.
Ultimate is down.
Retreat. Retreat.
On my way.
Ally has been slain. Ultimate is down. Ultimate is ready.
I don't know why I tried to wall that off.
Slain an enemy.
Do not know why I tried.
Pure.
An enemy has been slain.
Your heart is pure. What a blunder.
Thanos mid. I will go for the tower.
Blink down, Fana.
That's a great accent.
May they be cursed.
Enemy spotted.
Suppose I'll just back. Don't want Thana to smack my ass. I don't have ult to get out.
Ultimate is ready. Enemy missing middle. Be careful, right.
Fana ult.
Ultimate is ready.
An ally has been slain. On my way. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Enemy spotted.
Can't save them all.
An enemy has been slain.
Your heart is
That
pure.
wall. But I'm so lucky he ran to the bush.
I'll attack.
Amazing.
I'll grab a wood shield actually. It's pretty nice here.
Help.
Actually, is void shield even good anymore? It was nerfed, but I guess it wasn't removed that much. Aww, that's
Enemy ultimate
tragic.
incoming.
Neve is coming to you guys.
Don't worry so much. You'll get wrinkles.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury. Enemy missing left.
Amazing.
Enemy missing left.
Be right back.
Shut down. Double kill. Your middle tower is under attack.
On my way. Attack middle.
Killing spree. under attack.
No, he's so fast.
Ultimate is down.
Curses!
Do not fear.
You have been cursed.
They're both pretty decently
be
poked.
cursed.
Thanos very low. That's my bad. Fuck me. Actually, maybe before I do that, I think I need more attack speed.
Ultimate is down.
But what would I even go for? No, attack speed might be overkill.
Defend.
Is Pridman too much? Well, I need to buy something with this. I'll just do Wood Shield. Fuck it. Stick to the plan. That was bad chase. I didn't realize Sol was just gonna come over.
An enemy
Well, that
has
makes
been
sense.
slain.
Damn it.
I'm returning
Just
with a
bad.
lane.
Your left tower is under attack.
Ultimate is down.
Enemy missing left. Enemy missing left.
Motor might be tipping behind.
An enemy has been
Astounding.
slain.
Very
Your
commendable.
team has destroyed a right enemy tower.
Be right back.
Save yourself.
Don't need to TP. Hopefully.
Killing spree. Ultimate is down. Attack.
Ultimate is ready. Enemy ultimate down.
An enemy has been slain. On my way. An ally has been slain.
Enemy ultimate down.
Your right tower is under attack. Double kill. Your team has destroyed the gold fuel.
Okay, he landed. Thana ult done.
And all done.
Medusa ult as well.
On my way. May we be blessed.
Do they have a lot of anti-healing? Yeah, they do have a little bit.
May they be cursed.
I do feel like I actually need more attack speed. I kind of forgot what else you could build on this.
Your left tower
Maybe I
is
just do
under
Brag's Harp?
Your team has destroyed
Maybe that's
the
overkill.
pyromancer. Your right tower is under attack. An ally has been slain.
I am absolute ass.
You can say
Regroup for the Hades.
Your heart is pure.
Unfortunate.
Your right tower is under attack. Double kill. Triple kill.
I'll finish Magi's here, but... Oh. Playing with fire.
Ultimate is ready.
Stay safe, or else.
Chase the enemy. Ultimate is ready. On my way. May we be blessed with good fortune.
Curses.
What a blunder.
That's too bad.
Yeah, she was 1 HP.
That should help.
Attack the fire giant!
Astounding.
An enemy has been slain.
Okay, your heart is pure.
You rock.
Attack the fire giant!
Your left tower is under attack. Enemy spotted. Immortal. Your left tower is under attack.
Ultimate is down.
Shut down.
Your heart is pure.
An enemy has been slain. The pyromancer has arrived.
I don't think I should take this. I have a bad server. I don't think I should take the dagger. Someone else just do it.
Okay.
It might not go off when I press it.
Be right back.
I've already got a bomb. Someone else is gonna have to pick this.
Okay. On my way.
I'm instantly catching him. His ult.
Destroyed the pyramid.
Got stampeded 5.
I think that's looking good, man. Just bait them. I'm coming.
On my way.
I used a lot of shit.
Double kill. Killing spree.
I'll take the trade.
Your team has destroyed a left enemy tower.
Oh well.
Oh yeah, Nate, I actually didn't respond to what you said as well. Sobek definitely has a high pick rate, but
We'll just get mid tower.
he still is that like double-edged sword late game, I think. Like Sobek is just very good, especially in something like ranked. He's a super good laner as well, with a pickup potential and all that stuff. Like, it's hard for Sobek not to always have usefulness,
Destroyed a middle enemy tower.
but
I can blink ult double free, and you
I
guys.
do
can
think
kill
he's
There's
them.
no
very
beats
good
with
right
this.
now, though. I think
I think you.
he's
don't
one of
need-
the gods that benefit the most from having like Magi's in the game. Because now it doesn't necessarily mean that he actually dies from just plugging.
Ally has been slain.
He actually has a chance now because of that item.
Shut down.
He doesn't have it though, but still.
Yeah,
And I mean, I think
Thanatos is coming.
Sobek is
Thanatos is
just,
coming. Be careful, guys.
he is just good.
Thanatos ulti. Thanatos ulti. He's AFTG. He's AFTG. Use him as a bait.
I'm on my way.
Help him
My
s-
ult back up as well.
An enemy has been slain.
Got minions pushing right as well.
Soul beats.
Your team has destroyed little enemy phoenix.
Sol no ult. You have dagger. Use him as a bait.
That was close.
We should just get out.
Okay, Gulfir in the way out.
Sure.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
I do want some more attack speed now.
Be right back.
I think I'll do Kin's... No, Executioner, I mean.
Cancel that.
Then
Be
I will
right back.
focus on this part of it.
Drinking is for the halls.
Kinda just for the passive, to be honest. Fucking hell. I suppose for protection I could have gone Shoguns as well. Maybe I should have done that. Because we have 2 ADCs. And it helps Hades as well.
Okay, thanks. Ultimate is down.
An ally has been slain.
Purification beat, Sol ulti, Capri, I don't know, moderate ulti.
Gabriel and Sol.
Shut down. You have been slain.
Well,
Okay.
damn, I can't believe how low they all were.
Patient makes a full recovery.
That might be the game.
Nice, nice. I'm there in 20 seconds, bro.
Alright, thank God I didn't just go for the end. I got super scared there. We just got fucking wiped.
I have a TP for left.
Your left tower.
Oh, that was unfortunate.
An ally has been slain.
It's 8k, last I saw it.
Your left tower is under attack. Your team has destroyed the fire tower.
Your heart is pure.
On my way.
I got you, boys!
Yeah, just stay alive, boys. We can defend this.
I thought the team that dropped FG got dagger priority.
Bro, I swear I just want to pick the dagger, man. I forget the sword.
No, Kepler grabbed it as soon as it dropped. It was, but I thought the team that killed it had it like, you know, like pyro for a wee bit.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Your
Okay.
condition is
Greetings.
I'm the
improving.
greatest.
Woohoo! Ultimate is down. On my way.
I'll attack
Enemy
right
spotted.
lane.
Ultimate is down.
Yeah, you guys need to be careful about the Thanatos gank from behind.
Don't worry
something.
so much. Attack
Oh,
right
okay.
lane.
Are we doing not the gold fist? And I mean,
Okay.
Attack the Gold Fury.
Yeah, we might need some wards as well. We do need to know where Thana is.
I have Helm of Darknet again. If they try to fight, I'm coming from the bind.
Can't believe I used.
Capri dash down.
Amazing.
Capri dash.
Building stacks. Right.
My
Yeah, just
ult's down
go
for
right,
20.
go right. Yeah.
Ultimate is ready.
Thanatos ulti, Thanatos.
Salt super low.
Killing spree.
I swear, I just want to bait him in instant ult, but I don't see him on the map.
Capri all down.
Capri ult down. Capri dash.
Ultimate is down.
Another patient.
I wish I had my hammer and combo up when I
recovery.
landed on Thana there. Thana blink.
I think he's dead, bro. You need to be careful.
Yeah, I'm
He
dead.
is.
Used everything. Thana blink and ult.
I need to clear the left wave fast. Just wait a minute, please. I think I can go clutch here, man. Just chill.
Yeah, just keep an eye out for Thana. He's the main problem by a mile.
Protect me.
Huge. Well done, guys.
I need to help him.
You can just push up mid. They're all dead.
Another patient makes a full
Astounding.
recovery.
I can Isa, heal Isa and me.
Don't
No.
worry.
But I think we don't need it.
You have wrinkles.
We have completed our
Kick in.
mission. Your heart is pure.
Yeah, I kind of thought we did something really good in the last team fight. Or like, if Thana didn't have Blink, we would have caught him there, and he should have been dead. But since he had Blink, that didn't really work out. Student and the big damage. I'll give us a thumbs down because I once again had a bad server. Thor is just like no. I forgot. I just now remember the item that I forgot to build. It was Phoenix Shield. Damn it! Of course, I remembered after the game. God damn it! Oh, I got into. Oh, interesting. Oh no, almost. I need one more win. Break into the 5Ks. Put on the big tryhard pants for the next one. I don't really know how to do that, to be honest. I can't try hard in ranked for the life of me. Maybe I pull out the chalk. I guess if I wanted to full try hard, I would just go Hades. Or Thor again, I guess, but I feel like Thor is a lot more reliant on having a team than Hades is. On Hades, you can definitely solo play a lot easier. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Thor is definitely broken, but it's just when you get collapsed, I feel like you have nothing to do but try to just try and get away. You can definitely 2v1 stuff like that pretty well, but maybe I'm just bad. That is also a possibility.
Select your god.
Could do Thor again, but I'm actually leaning into the Chuck. It's Chuck time. Rain Man time. I might try a different build in this one as well. Bit more hybrid. Because I think I'm gonna need that this game. I feel like if I could full damage into a comp like that, I will absolutely just not have a good time. I will just get one shot. Even more so because I still usually just need Blink. I cannot get killed in a single Thor combo. I cannot help but feel like we've got super outdrafted. I believe in us though.
Shock!
Who did I give Aladdin to now though? I don't actually know. The only two Aladdins I've met recently that have absolutely been shitting on me and my whole team is gonna be was Gunter and Nika. Asta, I guess that makes sense, yeah. Warrior's Axe Chalk. Also, when I bought a potion, I could feel the lag itself. Again. This is some bullshit.
Good drink, eh?
Oh, whatever. I just don't get it. I don't know why some days I barely lag at all, and then other days I can only fucking lag. It's just so super frustrating. Oh, it's already stuttering on this one too. I just wish I even knew what the problem was. If I just knew it was like my shitty location or routing or some whatever, I would help a little bit, I guess. It's just never been an issue. It suddenly started happening in Smite 2 as well. It wasn't there in the beginning at all.
Oh, Maya Rifi!
That's too bad.
Minions have spawned.
Not level 2. Oh my god, what the fuck was that like? That was worse than all the others. The fuck? That was an atrocious spike. I felt like my health got fucking hit by that spike somehow. I hit one creep with that, that's terrible.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Enemy missing middle.
Be careful, right?
Enemy missing middle.
Enemy missing, right.
middle tower is under attack.
Looks like golden blade. So kind of my bad. Didn't realize Aladdin was on it.
Spread out.
Thought we were just.
Place a ward for teleport.
Thought we were just gonna go on him,
Has been slain.
on Thor when he rotated in.
Enemy missing.
Your right tower is under attack.
Ah, the creeps blocked me a little bit.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Right back. Sorry.
Probably just kind of do brawlers, because Thor. Actually, I'll not do that. I'm also taking it back. I'm not sure I'll get big on brawler in this game, after all. Because if I don't have damage, I'm probably just gonna die even harder. But I wasn't thinking going full hybrid anyway. I was thinking of going for a single early protection item, but now that I have Aladdin jungle anyway, that shit won't help.
Your right tower is under attack.
Damn.
An ally has been slain.
Ah, we need better than this, man.
That makes me sad.
An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack.
Loki, Anubis is on our red, man. Come kill him, please.
Under attack.
He slowed his ults down.
An enemy has been slain.
There's no way he's still landed that. That was a bit unnecessary, I guess, from either one of us. But 11 early just doesn't do well into damage dealers, so... Or I guess, like, brawlers slash tanks.
Your middle tower is under attack.
So fighting him there while still keeping a bit of a distance is just the best way to really deal with it. And Chuck is really good at the like right this moment. When my axe is rank 5, like between 9 and 12-ish, Chuck just does so much damage. There's so much base damage on his side.
Been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
The worst part about all the bad servers that I keep getting is that I'm almost getting used to it. While good, still hell annoying. Like I actually started to find them playable.
Killing spree. Your right tower is under attack. Your right tower is under attack. The pyroman has arrived. Your middle tower is under attack. Shut down.
Let me make it. Oh. Close. Of all the things to come, so big is the worst one. I should have just bagged like a... Damn it. I'm stupid and greedy. The one time I try to go greedy and dive him after the many times I could have done that, this is the time someone shows up and fucks my day. So big is just so fed too.
Ally has been slain. Double kill. Killing spree. Your left tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack. Be careful. The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
I'll get this shit now.
Yeah, sorry man, I can't go in that.
An ally has
was top SR, by the way, and whoever let Aladdin in, you should probably look at ending your life.
Your middle tower is under attack.
He must be low elo. Okay. I'll think about it. I know a student. It looks like shit at the moment, but I do actually think we have a chance of winning this game. Especially with Student Eye and Sol of all things too. Like, there's a lot of shit you can fall behind on and you think the game is over. I think Sol, you need a few items, you'll be there, man. I believe. Should probably look at maybe ganking, right?
Retreat.
An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack.
Damn, that block fucked me. I still TP'd somehow anyway. Yeah, I gotta stop trying to fight Thor and just rotate. Help somewhere else.
Middle lane.
Yeah, hello, Youngler.
Double kill.
You are irreplaceable.
Your left tower is under attack.
This guy's kind of an idiot.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack.
Let me make it.
Your left tower has been destroyed. An enemy has been slain.
Oops. Dude, no. Fucked by ping and you saw it. There's no way my ult didn't go off. That's horseshit. Iris! Fix the servers, please! I'm begging you! What is the easiest outplay of my life, and that happens? Oh no.
Genuinely, whoever let that cunt in needs to fucking kill themselves. Why you're not banning Aladdin is fucking beyond me. Genuinely die.
That's so loud. This might be a surrender moment now, though. Aladdin's getting too fed. It's in my hands. Yeah, whatever. I'm lagging as well. It's a low chance.
Defeat.
Aw. It was so loud. No, I can't type. Damn it. I think Asta would have destroyed him on anything. If I have to be honest with you. That's just Asta stuff. I don't think it was the god in his hands. It's just a skill diff. I just want to play without lagging servers though. I don't even care if I'm losing. It is so unfun to play when you're everything is so delayed. If I do get another bad server, I will just end it. The stream. Not what he said. If there's anything on that team I shouldn't have given away, it was the Thor. So the Sobek, yeah. Yeah, Sobek was also doing a lot that game. Sol specifically into Sobek is also horrible. There's just nothing you can do. It's like his kit just counters everything that Sol does.
Select your god.
Thank God. I really, really want a good chalk game. Okay, I read the chat. I can't see the character list, but I'll probably just pick Chuck anyway. I just want a Chuck game without lag, man. Please. Is it snowing? The fuck? It's fucking snowing here. Feels a little out of season. It's like a mix of rain and snow, actually. Oh, didn't realize it was that cold. We might lag magic damage if we only have Bari. Well, she obviously does nice damage. She doesn't do I don't know. Well, maybe we have enough. Because Chaka is kind of nice here. I want to see what I'm against, though. Huh? I'll go chalk them. I don't know if it's gonna be Gip or Yamoja, but
Princess Patty.
Shock.
at least this means I can do something, no matter what. Yeah, you fucked us well and good there, Astra. Or Atra. That was quite the unfun game when you started showing up in my lane. I was having a good time until you showed up. Thor didn't stand a chance. Well, he was starting to, actually. Who am I against? It's gotta be Emoja, right? Well... Actually, maybe I do this. If I'm allowed to sell, I'm not. Undo. What if I just do this?
My name. Lose.
I'm not, it's Skip. Nope, let's not do this. Regrets. We go back to this.
Fine, fine.
I do need brawlers this game though. I might have to not go for my serrated and just accept that brawlers is just by far the best item here. Should Agni ult themselves. Poor Sopic players. Unless they're against me, then maybe I agree.
Like stone.
Have fun.
Yes.
Alright, I am not liking this server. I can already tell. It is as simple as simply pressing an ability and leveling it up. Sometimes I can tell just from that. And buying things. For some reason, everything is delayed on a bad server. I don't understand it. I'm an idiot when it comes to that stuff. All I know is it sucks. And I hate it.
Minions have spawned. Good game.
That guy isn't in the game though. I kind of wish he was. The Kukulkan from last game. I wanted to be against him. Just to see for myself if it was the Aladdin.
Thank you.
Let me make it. Yes. Aspect, huh? Aspect is weird on Gep. I would never say it's actually worth it. The knock-up is just way better.
Okay. Oh, darling.
I haven't seen anyone who could actually convince me that it's good. It just feels like you lose too much and you don't gain enough.
Be careful, right. Enemy missing middle.
You are very small. Like
You gonna roll? That was completely useless because I cannot kill him. But still. A for effort. No. No! Why, game? Why, Bluestone? Why are you ass?
Okay.
Your left tower is under attack.
Oh well. At least he got denied pretty well. Like, I'm level 3, he's not 3 yet. And I'm halfway through. I say worth it. I'm gonna be an asshole.
Enemy missing leg.
boulder and stone. Life.
Enemy spotted.
Whee!
Enemy missing middle.
That could have been really bad. Feel like we're kind of locked out there. Let's get brawlers because it's just I need it so badly for later. Maybe I should have gone Transcendence first, actually. Just let it stack. Not that it matters now.
I'll be right back.
Be right back. Enemy ultimate down.
It's gonna be a damage give, it looks like. Might be scary to deal with in mid game.
Enemy missing right.
Spook of Thoth.
An ally has been slain. Be careful right. Enemies in right lane. Your right tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack. Your right tower is under attack.
On my way.
I think I can evade this. Never mind.
Enemies in the left.
Why is Ra babysitting this blue buff? It was down the last one too.
On my way. An enemy has been slain. Umpire!
I'll be right back.
Your left tower is under attack.
Okay. Oh, darling, you're a sizzler, aren't you?
Your left
Fuck
tower
it.
is
We're
under
rotating.
attack. An ally has been slain. Double kill.
No!
Double kill.
I did not need to blink, but whatever. I wanted to make sure he didn't get out, so.
Enemy missing leg.
Where has Skip been this whole time? I haven't seen him clear the wave. He's in mid now. I am confused about the events of this game.
Be right back.
It's so nice actually playing just without lag.
Enemy spotted.
Just moving my character feels good. That's all I'm asking, man. When things start sucking, you realize how you just miss the basic shit.
Enemy missing left. An ally has been slain. Your middle tower is under attack.
Enemies incoming!
Has
Right!
arrived. An ally has been slain.
I'll take middle way!
Your middle tower is under attack.
Aww.
Enemies in middle lane!
Let's see if I can be sneaky.
Be careful there!
Damn, he warded? What the fuck?
Friend, tough! Like stone! Cancel that!
Ain't no way.
Your middle tower is under attack. Defend the Gold Fury. Defend the Gold Fury. Enemy missing left. Cancel that.
On my way! On my way!
The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury. An enemy has been slain.
Friend!
Enemy spotted.
An enemy has been slain.
Okay.
Killing spree.
You tough. Be careful, right?
Oh, you was CC to death! I couldn't press my 2, man! Dude, that's the worst fucking time Herc possibly could have showed up. But whatever. At least they can be aggressive and right knowing Herc isn't left.
Oh, sad.
No worries, darling.
So sad.
Herc has no ult.
Your left tower is under attack.
What is he building? He does no damage. What the hell? Yes, it's a very tanky jungle build, to say the least.
Menacing middle.
I guess it's fine, I go full damage then, because we already have a tank. Goddamn.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your right tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack. Enemy missing left. An enemy has been slain. Shut down. Your right tower is under attack. An ally has been slain. On my way. An ally has been slain. The ultimate down. Enemy ultimate down.
Ultimate is ready. Attack.
Enemy ultimate down.
Damn it! If I only had some lower cooldowns. We got gold at least, but they might just go fire. I did prioritize my ult on the gold rather than the 2 backliners that were getting pretty low. Well, I guess not backliners, but like in the back. The emoji was super low, could have killed her with my ult.
Defend the fire giant.
Attack the fire giant.
On my way.
It's tanky ass Thor. Does no damage, he's so tanky, but he does too little damage. 42 autos on a squishy. Like that's wild.
Has been slain.
What the? Just no damage.
enemies have returned to base.
Your middle tower is under attack. Retreat right lane. Enemy spotted.
Dude, if I knew he was alone, I would have blinked and killed him. Sad. If I only had lifesteal.
Thanks.
On my way. Ultimate is down. Killing spree.
Dude, every time. Just wish my ult was up in time there. I really do. Big. The damage shock does feel so much weaker after the gold nerfs, because he just needs like late game as soon as possible, and that happens so much later now.
Has been slain.
Was that a solo kill? By the full mage Gip? Against Arbari? Now that I think about it, maybe I should go Erendite too. Maybe I can try that last. I won't have any pen though if I do that.
Enemy missing.
Your left tower is under attack.
Be careful left.
Okay. Enemy missing left.
Enemy missing.
On my way.
Attack the fire giant.
On my way.
Your right tower is under attack. Your team has destroyed the pyramid.
I'll be right sorry. Enemies at the gold
Gank
tower.
middle lane.
Fire
Attack
Your
the
right tower
fire
is under
giants.
attack. The heat bears down on
Ow.
enemy spotted.
Raw beats.
Middle tower is under attack.
They all just showed up at the wrong fucking time, man. I really thought that was a good fight for us.
Your left tower is under attack.
It's a lot of damage. We just to split.
Has been slain.
And I'm not really a huge fan of the store builds at the moment. He just does 0 damage. He can't kill anything. He's hard to kill, but like that's literally it. Huge.
So sad.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Okay.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Be careful.
You have slain an enemy.
Tough.
Enemies in right lane.
Stone.
Your right tower is under attack.
Smoke blink on my ult though. Pretty much just everything to kill a mage gap.
Has arrived.
I ran into that shit.
Your right tower is under attack.
There's no way. Oh. We're letting Herc play around with us way too much. Like he's just shitting on us right now. If we get him here, that's good. But
Your right tower
yeah,
is
nope.
under attack. Triple kill. Killing spree. Your right tower is under attack.
I played that bad. I shouldn't have TP'd in the first place. That was just stupid. It's a waste of ult at least.
An enemy has been slain.
That's unfortunate.
The enemy team has destroyed the fire giant.
I'll be right back, friend.
I feel like Chuck can be a bit rough to sometimes go in with. Because he's a very predictable god. Like when he ults from a distance, you know he's gonna blink, like shit like that. Just almost always feels like you know what he's doing, you know.
Retreat!
Oh, it's back. I want to save for Bluestone.
slain.
I just fucking cooked by Discord. Like, Madlib Discord just fucked me up. It's so awkward fire first to take too, while you're fighting outside Phoenixes. I have such a anti-defense.
Your middle phoenix.
Or like anti-sieging. Tragic. They're just gonna end it.
Your middle phoenix has been destroyed. Your titan is under attack.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks. I think this Thor build isn't bad. It's just, against their comp, we need something that actually does damage. He literally does 0 damage. So we just didn't really have enough damage when we actually went in. And Bari played it so well, I do feel bad for him. So did Student I feel like, but... Herc just kind of... I don't know, destroyed us. It's kind of just a Herc solo show. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Student I. I've been saying it the whole game too. Like, he just doesn't have any damage. Like, as I specifically said, I don't think this build is bad, but into a comp like theirs, we need damage. Like, we have so little damage. Like, I'm full damage, but Shock just doesn't do the same as, like, Thor does at the moment. This build can definitely work, but you need to know what you're against, and they need a much more squishy comp for that really to work. Like, no one's ever killing Hercules. Thor could, if he had enough damage. But dude, it's insane how much damage he still does when he still has like 2 protection items. Hercules is fucking insane. And I got destroyed by Mantle in that last team fight. Discord just fucked me up. I don't think I should have normally died. Yeah, I even had brawlers too. And I mean, Thor also had Ankh. Like, I feel like anti-healing. Yeah, you also are. Bari had a anti-healing. I mean, we could have used the Divine Ruin, but no one can really build it on this team. I probably should have went for something magical instead, as I expected I should have in this game. While Bari is obviously a mage, or like an ADC type mage, we don't have a whole lot of team-wide burst damage. So I think I should have went for a mage in this game. I wanted to pick Ra though, to be fair, but I feel like I would have just had a really rough time if I played Ra this game. I don't know which mage to even play in solo anymore outside of just Hades. And when I don't feel like playing Hades. I don't recommend the Gep. If anyone on their team didn't deserve to win, it was the Gep. No, I'm just joking mostly, but that's so funny, man. My dude didn't really do much that game. It was very much on these two. And for some reason, Ra really babysit the Gep's blue buff. He was there for the first 2 blue buffs. That was really annoying. I couldn't invade it. Maybe it's just time to pull out the old Poseidon. I think I might have a 100% win rate with Poseidon in ranked. No, that can't be true. But I feel like I win out every time. For some reason, Zeus and Poseidon are probably some of my highest win rate gods in solo. It's just pure luck, though. Oh no, I definitely lost on Poseidon. I remember it. Oh, how I wish God Builder was a thing. I want to fuck around with builds so much. I just can't keep it all in my head. So when I actually have to put it into practice, I just forget it. I need God Builder. I feel like I've been saying all day today I'm gonna play full tank next game. Still hasn't happened. Maybe the next one is gonna be the one. This will be my last game though, I'm running out of time. Did I miss the queue? Damn, I also lost 2 games in a row after almost reaching 5k. Tragic. Oh no, I didn't queue again, fair enough. Oh. Chuck is just not my pick, I guess. Like, when did I last win on Chuck? I feel like I lost my last games. Yeah, I lost. Chuck, what happened? You were my go-to. Damn, my go-to is a curse. I recognize everyone except for this guy. In the middle. No. No, sir. There's quite a lot of roles you can get me to play, but that ain't one of them. I kinda wanted to play Cupid, I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like there are so many OP solo picks, and I just don't feel like playing any of them. Like Thor, Hades. I'm not getting Thor anyway, I guess.
Select your god.
Or the Zeus. Scrap the Zeus. I was debating Poseidon, but I feel like Poseidon would be harder to pull off because I can't build as tanky on him as I can on Zeus into a comp like that. Now I just pray I get a good server so I can land my autos, otherwise I'm cooked. I'll probably never hit Chain Lightning if I'm on a bad server. That shit's harder to hit than autos. That ability is already kind of delayed.
Zeus.
I thought it was gonna be against Thor. If I'm against Sopik, oh no. I mean, it's easier for my wave clear, I suppose, but it's so much more scary than Thor to deal with as Zeus, I feel like. Sopik has been plaguing everyone today except for me. Now it's gonna be plaguing me. I do not know who the Sopik is, though. Assuming it actually is going to be Sopik solo. Kinda happy I went Zeus regardless. Like, with Asta and Thor, I do need something I can fight back. Server is good. Safe.
Enjoy yourself. An ally has left the game. An ally has returned.
I do wonder though, like how high is Zero? Because Asta is like fucking 6.6k. But yeah, I mean, it's not like there's that many people that high. I do wonder how that interacts with matchmaking. Like, I do feel like... Aw, hit you see it again.
Okay.
What a shame.
Goodbye.
Damn, I lost my thought process because of that. Oh yeah, I wonder why they aren't just making it like a cap, like it was a Smite 1. Like, why does it need to just go infinitely?
Minions have spawned.
That just seems a bit weird and unnecessary. Damn, look at this nice enemy team. I hope he comes back, because I don't really have time to do another game either way, so I would like it to end on a normal game.
Blast it all! under attack.
Passing joyful responses. Huzzah.
Lightning bolt.
A fitting end.
Lightning bolt. First blood.
It's kind of a terrible hitting autos there. I feel like I should have gotten him way before. Maybe. I mean, he did actually have plug. Axe kind of came in clutch, honestly.
Defeat.
Oh well. As much as I hate it, that is where I'm gonna have to end. Alright. Well, thank you guys for watching as always. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time.